Hello, everyone. Welcome to People Keep Dying, the podcast where we talk about people who die. I'm your host, Stephanie.
And I'm Angela.
And this is episode 9.
And this is sort of a special episode because we're so close to Halloween.
Yes.
So we're going to do a Halloween theme.
Actually, we're releasing this on Halloween.
Well, I don't know if you don't have time to.
Yeah, I will most definitely. Yes, I'll edit this tonight, and then we will release it for Halloween. This will be out on Halloween.
Yeah.
If it's not on, out on Halloween, it's Angela's fault, not Stephanie's fault. We're just saying that right now.
And even then, it's just like we get it out. It's just.
So on this spooky Halloween special episode of Halloween, we are doing Halloween murders. Something. I'm not gonna make any presumptions about your story, but on my story, there was a murder on Halloween.
Mine was too.
Okay, yeah. So we're telling Halloween stories. I would have loved to have told you scary Halloween stories. As scary as this piece of shit is, that's not what this podcast is about.
No,
we don't do scary stories. I'm going to talk to you today about John Douglas White. And I got most of my information because there's not a lot of information out on this person, which was really shocking to me.
Because he's a serial killer, right?
Because, yes, he is serial. Spoiler for my story. So I really thought that there would be like more news articles. And there really was just more news articles on the Halloween one than anything else. So I got most of my information from Hellbeast.com and Murderpedia. So John Douglas White was born May 20th, 1957, in some backward city in Michigan. It's probably not even backwards. He was born in some city in Michigan. And he grows up and gets married, and he moves to Battle Creek, Michigan. And that's sort of where his reign of terror starts.
Where is it? Do you know?
Battle Creek, Michigan? No, I don't look that shit up. It's in Michigan. We pop all over the place, but everything's going to be in Michigan. Cities don't really, they matter, but not a lot.
Michigan.
We're in Michigan. We at least know the state.
It's better to me most of the time.
And so one afternoon in Battle Creek, Michigan in 1980, Mr. John Douglas White stops one of his neighborhood girls, 17-year-old Teresa Etherton, and invites her over to check out his new slot car racetrack that he has set up in his basement, which a little weird.
Don't follow your neighbors into their basement.
Yeah,
unless you have
when you hear stories about like little kids coaxing little kids in to go see your slot race car track, I could probably understand that a little bit, like a little 6-year-old kid. This was a 17-year-old girl. But apparently
she probably knew who he was, though.
Yeah, he was. She didn't know who he was. He was married. She basically sort of seen him as like this sort of quiet, older gentleman, married gentleman. Didn't really think anything of it. It was sort of like a quiet town. Nothing bad stuff really happens in Battle Creek, Michigan. He was super polite about it. So she agreed and goes with him into the house. He takes her downside. He takes her inside and then goes down the stairs to show him to the downside. Mm-hmm. And as she's admiring it, he then stabs her right under her right shoulder blade. And in an interview, Teresa said, "It's a really weird feeling that you get when you're stabbed. I couldn't breathe. I guess he had punctured my lung." So yes.
Oh my god.
Survivor. Not survivor.
It's a survivor story. Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Teresa survives. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, she is the only one
that survived
that we know of.
Well, she's very fortunate that she did survive. So I'll look at the bright side for now until I find out.
So John brings her to the house, stabs her under the right shoulder blade, and she tries to fight him off. But during the struggle, he ends up pulling her into him and then cutting her right across the stomach. And she says that she remembered that as she she remembered staring him in the face, and as he cut her open, he was smiling and had like a look of just like pure pleasure. And like that's creepy. Like, could you imagine being stabbed and having someone smiling at you? Like, you would think that they'd have more of like a grimacy. I don't know. I've never really thought about being stabbed, but you would think like the action would be more of like a grimacy action. You know what I mean? Like,
Because it's a lot. It's
because
like
it's
a
creepier
workout.
like this, right?
Yeah, it's
like,
not like it's not like
I was
Christian
like-
Bale in like American Psycho where he's like smiling.
Yeah.
But
that's next level.
Yeah,
Because it would be so shocked. Like, first of all, you're so shocked that you're
being stabbed.
getting stabbed, but to have someone smiling at you.
Then you're like, I'm gonna die now because this guy's enjoying it way too much.
Yes. So she struggles with him. She tries to fight him off. He starts yelling at her to shut up. He tells her that this isn't his first time, and that she is making it more difficult than it needed to be. And it's like, yeah, buddy, sorry that I'm not over here just letting you kill me, that I'm struggling with you. We don't know if this was or was not his first time. He never admitted to any previous attacks, and no other victims sort of showed up that matched the ML or anything like that. So, but it also
He's
could
so
not have been.
happy.
Yeah.
So I mean, usually you're like trying to figure out, but maybe
Yeah.
it was like because he was so happy because it was his first time, and like there's like this adrenaline rush of like
But
endorphins.
it could not have been his first time, but there is no proof. I have no proof that he had killed anyone prior to Miss Teresa.
Well, maybe
here.
that's why she survived because she was the first.
Oh, well, she actually, by the grace of God, it was a miracle that she survived. Like, truly, truly, truly. So, during the attack, as he's stabbing her, he also starts calling her by his wife's name, and stabs her several times in the stomach, yelling about how she's put on weight. So he's like angry at his fucking wife, and that seems to be a little bit of a thing with him. Is he gets a little bit angry at his wife and he goes and
Kills
kills
someone
else. So he stabs her 15 times in total, and then begins to rock her back and forth and tells her to shh and go to sleep.
Oh my god.
Teresa starts to go a little bit limp. He lays her down on the floor to bleed out, and then basically like stands over her, hovers over her, and mumbles like, "Are you dead yet? Why haven't you died?" And she, says, "No, I haven't." Blah blah blah. Which, like, I couldn't even imagine like having conversations. Like, she did this interview and she was talking about like the conversations that like he was having with her, and it was just nah. So he also said to her that like, you're gonna be a really nice piece of meat. And when she asked him what he meant by that, he said, "If I can't have you, I'm sure as hell not gonna let anybody else have you."
Ew.
So, and then he starts to kiss her.
Ew.
Yeah. So
That's so. I don't know why that's like the grossest part. I think it's because like she's covered in blood.
yeah, and like he wipes off her mouth, like the blood off of her mouth, and then tries to kiss her.
Ew.
And then he holds her hand and says, "You're going to go now. I'm really sorry you had to go like this, but what the fuck? You're just a woman." Then he attempted to cut her throat, but she moved her head down, I guess, a little bit. And he ends up cutting her chin and doesn't realize that he hasn't cut her throat because there's so much blood. And so he just assumes that she's cut her throat and lays her back down. And Teresa, by some glory, pretends to be dead. And John walks away.
Jeez.
Teresa tries to get up, but she can't because she lost so much blood. And then she hears someone come back downstairs, and she realizes that it's the wife. So Teresa cries out for help. And the wife walks over to her with a sheet, covers her with a sheet, and tells her to shut up. Just shut up. And then gets back up and walks.
So she
back
knew.
out.
Obviously.
Yeah, she obviously knew.
Yeah.
She's there. So
But then,
fuck that
maybe
wife.
this isn't the first time because she doesn't seem surprised.
No, she doesn't seem surprised.
No.
Now, so yes, it's very possible that it isn't the first time and they've gotten away with it because the wife clearly seems complicit in some way.
Usually,
there was,
regardless of how you are, you're surprised with the first kill, right?
there was a little bit of an argument that was made as to whether or not she was in fear of her own life, and maybe that's sort of like, I'm not going to make any assumptions about the wife, but fuck her.
Yeah.
These people, because it, I don't know, but these people
How did
were
she
idiots.
survive?
So these people they invited people over. I'm assuming possibly to either like maybe create like an alibi, like, oh, well, my husband and I were entertaining guests. Or like maybe the wife came home and he went upstairs and he was covered in blood and the wife was like, what the fuck? Like maybe this was the first time and then the wife was like, well, I'll help you cover it up, or like,
or maybe already
because
had people coming
the
over.
side is only told by Teresa's. We only know Teresa's version of the events. So they John and his wife have people over, and one of them hears Teresa screaming from the basement, which of course, and so they call the police and the police show up and Teresa's saved.
And then he wasn't.
So so he gets charged. He's found guilty with assault with the intent to murder. And in 1981, a jury finds him guilty. But John didn't want to go to prison. And so he goes to the courts and he's like, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen.
Yeah.
Maybe, instead of going to prison, you could just recommend some help because I really need some help. He's quoted as saying, I wouldn't listen to people that tried to tell me that I had a problem, but I realized that I have one now.
Oh, I'm glad. So as long as you're self-aware, then
Yeah.
you don't have to serve.
He have a
time.
little bit of a problem. So he didn't want to go to jail. He asked to get some help instead. And the judge was like, no. And sentenced him to 5 to 10 years.
That's it?
In prison. Citing that it is only by the sheer grace of God that the victim in this case was still alive.
I'm glad that like she survived, but at the same time it's like holy fuck. So he got like a slap on the wrist because like, well, she lived.
Well, hold on, because it gets worse.
It gets
The judge also recommends that he get some mental health counseling while he's in prison.
Definitely fucking needs it.
How many years of the 5 to 10 do you think he served?
9 months.
No, he did serve 2 years.
Okay.
He won an appeal on his conviction.
Sure.
Because he claimed that his attorney was wrong to not raise an insanity defense because poor old John here had partial amnesia.
Oh my God.
Because he didn't remember what happened. So he should have been able to get an insanity defense. And so he got his conviction appealed and was released after 2 years. And of course, because this is in the early 80s, they didn't notify victims at this time. That became more regular in policy like later on, where there's now a system where victims can sign up to receive information when like the criminal or like the assailant or whatever does things. Not during this time. So Teresa didn't find out until 2 years later when she was one day standing in line somewhere and she heard his voice behind her. And when she turned around, he was smiling at her.
Oh my God.
And so she went like crazy berserk. She grabbed one of like the little railing, like, the like fake railing things that they have there, little pylons.
At the entrance. Oh, okay.
Yeah, like where you like shake the other thing too. You're watching my hand signals.
Oh, wait.
Like the little
poles with the chains on them, like the VIP chains.
She grabs one of like the little railing chain majiggers, and she attacks him with it.
Well, yeah.
And
she gets charged.
She starts screaming that he attacked her. He's like telling everybody like what he did to her. The security guard intervenes and like starts trying to protect the guy, and he's telling her like, you need to leave, like get out of here, go go go. And she leaves. But life carried on for John. That's sort of it for
Did his
Teresa.
wife stay with him too?
He did stay married to that woman, and they ended up having 3 children together.
Oh, I'm glad that he procreated.
Which
That's what we need.
I couldn't really find out more about the wife, but I mean, she clearly knows that he's a murderer.
I'm kind of worried about
like
how
an
his
attempted
children
murderer.
turned out then because of the way his wife was, not because of like it's not. You know what I mean? Like yeah.
Who knows?
not
I mean,
like the
maybe
children's
he was a
fault,
really good
but-
dad. Who knows?
The wife seems a little off too.
Yeah.
They're both pretty off.
But yeah, so like most trash humans with a taste for murder, it wasn't going to be long until John was going to need to kill again because he's a fucking monster. So in 1994, John quits his job as a long haul truck driver and he gets a new job in a textile shop. And that's where he meets 26-year-old Vicky Sue Wall, and the two of them start to have an affair. So a few months later, however, on July 11th, 1994, at 3 a.m., Vicky is last seen getting into the back of a black pickup truck. Guess who owns a black pickup truck?
Not John.
John does. John does.
No, not him.
The police question John on her disappearance, and at first he's evasive. He starts saying that he hadn't seen her and he has no idea where she is, doesn't know what the police are talking about, didn't even know that she was missing. And then when the police show him the video of her getting into his truck, he's like, oh, okay, yeah, no, I did see her. I was actually there to meet her. We hung out in the truck for a little bit, but then I left, but when I left, she was still alive.
I mean, obviously he gets away with it because he's serial, so it would have been more than one person.
Okay, so, and the police were like, okay, we don't have anything to really go on. We've questioned him. He didn't crack, so they let him go.
Sure.
A couple days later, John attempts to commit suicide with some alcohol and some pills. And
they should have let him.
What a fucking unfortunate thing that he didn't fucking die. Because, again, so many lives would have been spared.
Yeah.
So he overdoses. He ends up in a hospital, and the police are like, "Hey, that's a little fucking suspicious that you tried to kill yourself." So they come in, they start questioning me again, and this time he's like, "Oh, I get these blackouts, and sometimes I think, I do violent things in these blackouts, but I don't remember, and it's possible that." Maybe I may have had a blackout, and maybe I may have done something.
Oh my gosh.
To Vicky, but he doesn't remember because that partial amnesia.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was able to argue it during his case, so it's a previously known.
Yeah.
Diagnosis.
So the investigators are like, "This dude totally fucking did."
Yeah, he fucking did.
So they get a warrant for his truck. And they spray luminol in the back of the truck. And he did a pretty good job of trying to clean it up. But this fucking puppy blew up, started lighting up like the 4th of July. Like luminol, it was glowing everywhere. There was so much blood. So someone was bleeding, clearly, in the back of this truck. But DNA testing was still really new, and they couldn't prove that it was Vicky's. So they couldn't arrest him, and the case ends up going cold. They have to release him. 6 weeks later, however, because they didn't have a body, that was why. They didn't have a body yet. She was just sort of missing, and they couldn't really prove foul play until you have a body. So 6 weeks later, a local resident, was walking near his parents' house when he spots some drag marks off a trail. So he's like, "Hey, what's this?" And he follows the trail up. And that's when he notices some white tennis shoes and a pair of underwear. He's like, "Well, that's a little suspicious."
A little bit.
Walks a little bit closer. That's when the smell hits him, and he notices a skull. And then he hightailed it out of there, called the police. Police showed up. Vicky was naked from the waist down, and her body was so badly decomposed that they couldn't determine a cause of death. But the pathologist ruled that the manner of death was suggestive of homicide.
Well, I mean, she was dumped somewhere. So usually when that happens, you were.
She was dumped. John was charged with murder. And at first he was like, no, it wasn't me. And then he very quickly flipped, and he ended up pleading guilty to involuntary manslaughter.
Oh my gosh.
And the police were like so shocked because they had no proof. They had no proof of her cause of death. So the fact that he pled guilty, like, and admitted that, yeah, he did it was like, he could have gotten away with it if he would have just sort of hung in there and
Yeah,
denied
which is
it,
awful.
but
Way.
he didn't. So he is sentenced to 8 to 15 years in prison.
That's so good.
And the following year, his wife finally divorces him, which is, I mean, she was pretty okay with like murder and attempted murder, but don't fucking cheat on me.
Yeah.
Apparently. She didn't like
the fact
that.
She likes the commitment.
Yeah.
It's okay if you like go and rape someone and murder them, but don't be in a relationship with
Well, so the raping wasn't really happening
them. Oh.
per se, right? So
But I mean, she
now-
was naked from the waist down.
yes, but they didn't know sort of what happened. There was no proof that he had raped her.
Okay.
However, with the next story, because he does develop a fetish to have sex with a dead body. Now, in the stories that I had sort of read, they were saying that this is what he was escalating to. I sort of feel like that was his plan the whole time, that he wanted to have sex with her corpse. We don't really know what he did with Vicky.
So he's out of jail now, isn't he?
So, yes. He goes to jail for the 15 years. And luckily, he does serve his full sentence. But, I mean,
But unluckily, he's out.
But it's 15 years. And he was released in 2007. And all in all, it seemed like prison did pretty good for him this time. Maybe because he actually was in there for a long period of time. And he did get his mental health help. And he also found God. And he became very devout. And soon after his release, he miraculously somehow gets voted in as a pastor at the Christ Community Fellowship, which is a small church in Deerfield Township of Mount Pleasant in Michigan.
Oh my God, something's wrong with these people.
Yeah. And to make that all worse, the members of his congregation knew about his past.
And they were just okay with it.
And they still voted him in. So
Good.
this dude must have been fucking charming.
Really
Like,
charismatic. For sure. Sociopaths
all of
are
the personality.
super
all of the
charismatic.
personality. He was probably like, listen, I did some shit. You know,
I murdered someone.
it was
and almost murdered
involuntary.
someone
I
else.
don't know what happened. It was
Yeah.
bad.
I
Like,
didn't
I've got
rape
this
them.
Well, I mean,
That's what he's going to say,
I
though, if there's no
didn't-
proof
yeah,
of it.
He
so.
didn't rape them. Yeah, he must have a good song and dance because he even gets engaged to one of his members,
Oh my
his
God.
members of his congregation, a lady by the name of Sally Gay. And I'm not really sure what Sally personally saw in John, but I can probably
There's
guess what
tons
John
of
saw
people.
in Sally.
Did she look dead?
No, Sally had a 24-year-old daughter
Oh.
named Rebecca. And Rebecca lived just a few doors down from John, very similar to how Teresa lived just a few doors down. So we're repeating your MO a little bit here. So even though Sally knew about John's past, Rebecca didn't. And I'm sure if Rebecca had
Knew.
known, she probably wouldn't have been okay with it,
No.
and she probably wouldn't have been as trusting. But to Rebecca, John was just like this quiet old pastor, who was nice and polite and respectable.
You just don't expect
and
someone. Yeah.
She would even let him babysit her 3-year-old son,
Ew.
like while he was at work, because it's her mom's boyfriend. It's her mom's pastor boyfriend.
Don't trust your mom.
Who lives down the street a little
Don't
bit.
trust your mom to take
Yeah.
someone. Never.
Don't ever trust.
Yeah.
So, but unfortunately for Rebecca, John wasn't a nice guy.
No.
He was a murderer, a pretty sick one at that. And John was starting to feel that itch again.
Oh no. The amnesia was coming back?
No, he was starting to feel that itch again. Well, yeah, the amnesia.
The amnesia.
The amnesia's
Yeah, the temporary amnesia's coming back.
It's coming back. So on October 31st, 2012, after drinking several beers to build up the courage, John broke into Rebecca's trailer home, snuck into her room, and then struck her several times in the head with a rubber mallet. And then afterwards, he strangled her with a zip tie until she was dead, and then raped her repeatedly. When he was finished, he picked her up, put her in the trunk of his truck, drove her a half mile out into the woods, and dumped her body. Then he drove back to her house, got into her car, took her phone, threw it into a dumpster nearby, dropped her car, parked it at the local bar, and then on the way back, dropped off the bloody mallet and the towels in different dumpsters. Went back to her house, woke up her 3-year-old son, got him dressed in his Halloween costume,
Took him trick-or-treating.
then took him to a store to get picked up from his dad to go trick-or-treating.
Good.
Then he went to church. Rebecca was reported missing later on that afternoon, and while police started to search for her, shitbag John over here was in his church asking his congregation to pray for him and his wife, his fiance. Sally wasn't married to him yet. And Rebecca's safe return.
Ew.
The following day, police find her body naked in a ditch near her home. John was later arrested, where he confessed to the murder, and he tells them that he killed her and that he undressed her, but he couldn't remember if he raped her.
Yeah, because the amnesia.
The amnesia.
Yeah.
That damn amnesia.
But the amnesia didn't prevent him from remembering the murder, at least.
No,
So
he at
that's
least
different.
did, yes. So on March 28th, 2013, John White, who's now 55 years old, pleads guilty to second-degree murder, and since this is now his third offense and making him a habitual offender, he's sentenced to 56 to 85 years in prison.
Oh.
So, yay, we got him in jail for a good amount of time. However, a couple months later, John hangs himself in his jail cell. So that piece of shit is finally dead.
Is it, like, weird to think to myself as soon as you said, like, he was a converted Christian, that the one person we should be most afraid of in the world now are white male Christians?
You should. People have been afraid of white male Christians since the beginning of white male Christians. Like,
So scary now.
that's all I have to say. And that's all I'm gonna say on that. And that's the story of John Douglas White, the murderous piece of shit pastor from Michigan, the United States of America. Woo! I know. Didn't you love my story? It
I
was
did
great.
really love your story.
Thanks.
And
I worked real hard on it.
it wasn't 13 pages.
No, it definitely wasn't 13 pages, by the way, guys. I
liked
apologize.
I liked the Vietnam story.
I really hope that you guys
Sat through it.
really enjoyed my Kent State Massacre.
I liked it because I liked like the background behind it and everything.
Kent State, yeah.
But I think it was like really late during that time, and we were getting really tired at that point.
like for me, we're only like 9 episodes in. But Kent State Massacre was my favorite one.
Yeah.
Because I felt like
I really liked
I
that
did the
one.
most research on it. I felt it was fully fledged out. I thought I performed it very well. It was
Yeah, I
great.
liked it.
If only the audio quality was great.
You know, it wasn't like I listened to the first 2 episodes, so yeah. All right, so my murder is also in the States,
Ooh.
and it is a murder, but not a serial killer murder.
Oh, that's okay.
It's a one-off, but it's surprisingly also this person didn't have a Wikipedia page or a Murderpedia page.
You didn't have a
either.
Murderpedia page?
And I think I found most of the information like in local newspapers, as well as Sword and Scale, I think, did an episode. I didn't listen to it, but I found their blog thing about it.
Okay.
So let's get in on this.
Yeah.
So,
Tell me a story.
I wrote this like a story. On the Halloween night of 1973 in the working class neighborhood of Fond du Lac in Wisconsin, Lisa Ann French was getting ready
Oh,
for trick or
fuck.
treating.
I almost did
That's
this.
why I was like, don't do. Like, if you see
Here's
his
the thing.
name, don't fucking do it.
I was going to message you and be like, this Lisa French name sounds like super like familiar to me. Have they ever done like a story on Lisa French? Because like I think the French last name
Yeah.
is like, was one of Paul Bernardo's victims of French?
Maybe.
But
a person with the last name French.
yeah, with the last name French. But Lisa, I was
Lisa.
gonna do her.
So did you read it?
No, like I only did a little bit, but because I was so taken back by the Lisa French, I was like,
Maybe
this is a
name
popular, like I'm pretty sure this is a popular story.
surprisingly wasn't.
That is insane.
The story doesn't have a
Maybe
Wikipedia
that's why
page.
I didn't. When you said the don't do a Gerard or whatever,
Gerald.
I didn't even know who had killed her. I had only seen the Lisa French name.
So you haven't actually gotten there yet.
Oh my god, that would have been so great if we did the same story.
So Lisa was 9 at the time,
Yes.
a 4th grade student at Chegwin Elementary School. Lisa was to meet her friend Ann Parker and head out to the outdoor party hosted by the parents of the neighborhood. During this time, there were scares of poisoning candy and razor blades and candied apples.
As it was at the time.
Yeah, so the community wanted to create a safe space for children to still enjoy Halloween without dying.
Whoa, that's
I know, right?
like safe space.
A safe space, and she
So-
doesn't die there. So
Okay, I'm just trying to think of like how they would create a safe space. So did
because
they like?
maybe it's at a community center, and then they have like
they just set up tables and everyone.
yeah, and that way you're
just-
not going to a stranger's house or something.
I mean, okay, that's odd.
So Lisa had wanted to dress up as a butterfly, but it was too cold outside, and her mother thought the costume would be too flimsy for the cold autumn night.
What she change her into?
Lisa instead went as a hobo. Her costume
Oh.
consisted of jeans with masking tape, a floppy felt hat, and a green parka.
No,
She was super cute.
I bet she
And
was.
she had fake dotted freckles sprinkled on her face.
Oh my god! What does she have? Little red hair?
No, but she had like a little bowl cut. Like I saw a picture of
I
her.
bet she's
She was
so
She was really
adorable.
cute, and she was 9. So yeah,
Man, where were you at 9? I don't remember what I was at 9.
I don't even know what grade I was in.
God, how old? What year was that? 1996. Fuck.
So for me, that was
I was a Spice Girl, probably. No, I'm
95.
just kidding.
So I would have been 5th grade. Nothing, just school. Normal stuff. I was still walking home from school by myself because it was no one
Oh,
cared
yeah.
back then. But yeah. Anyways, so she left her home at 6 p.m. shortly after dinner. And Ann Parker, her friend who she was supposed to meet, had misbehaved. So as punishment, her parents grounded her, and she was not able to go trick or treating with
Wow,
Lisa.
what did she do where she was allowed
They
to
didn't
go
talk.
Halloween?
She doesn't talk about it, but in the later interviews, she talks about how guilty she feels that she did something wrong and be punished, even though she was 9. And
Yeah.
like she felt like maybe
Oh
if
my
she had gone
gosh.
together with Lisa.
Could you imagine if it was something like so stupid, like where like she
She
didn't
didn't wash
make
the dishes.
she didn't wash the
take
dishes,
a
she didn't
dick-
make her bed that
It's probably
day.
something stupid.
but at the same
Could
time
have saved
like,
her life.
it could have also been something really bad. Like think of what would your kid need to do where you would be like, you're
No
not going
trick-or-treating.
Halloween trick or treating.
It would have to be something though, like
like a bad
parents
grade.
back then in the 70s. It's probably something stupid like they got a bad test grade,
Yeah.
or you had asked them to
She-
take out the
she
trash
sassed
for like
off.
3, or she sassed off, and then it was just
Yeah.
like, I don't want to deal with you anymore. You don't get to go, and that's it.
Yeah.
So
Damn.
yeah. So
Damn.
Lisa knocked on the door of her neighbor, Gerald Miles Turner Jr., a man that she knew. He's a 25-year-old machinist in the 3rd house that night that she trick-or-treated at. So this was a 3rd house
That's-
that she got to.
Man, she barely.
He lived half a block away from her house.
That's upsetting. That's so upsetting.
Lisa had a
What's with the people killing their fucking neighbors, man? Don't see. This is why I don't trust my neighbors. People are all like,
you're not supposed to try. Like I think it's always like like the person who murders you is more likely someone you know. So you know.
and
your
by
neighbors.
know, it's like someone you may not know them, but,
But
they
they can
know.
know you.
But they know you. Like it's someone that you probably like. That's so.
Well, she had a previous relationship with him as
Oh,
she had
shit.
played with his baby
Oh.
and would often visit him, showing him things she had gotten or sit down and talk with him. Because, like,
Yeah, neighbors.
yeah, she's 9. That's what 9-year-olds do. They go talk to strangers and
Especially in the
hang out with
70s,
them.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure, like, statistically, it's pretty safe, but now it's, yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Gerald lived with his girlfriend, Arlene Penn, at the time. Gerald would later tell detectives that he was highly sexually motivated when he killed her.
Oh,
Which is,
great.
yeah. He lured Lisa into his bedroom where he raped her. He would later insist that he did not strangle her, but she had died as a result of the shock from the rape, which doesn't make it any better.
Yeah.
No.
It sort of sounds. So he's like, I didn't strangle her. She died from the shock. Sort of sounds like he covered her mouth to keep her from screaming, and she
Yeah.
probably fucking suffocated.
Yeah. Probably
Or
exactly what
he
happened.
probably strangled her by holding her at the throat.
Yeah, so
Sorry
it'd
to
be
get
like,
a little bit graphic there.
Because
I
at
tend
7:15, Arlene, Gerald's girlfriend, and her daughter returned home from the pumpkin place, the neighborhood Halloween safe space gathering.
Oh no! And did they catch him? Oh.
Gerald was in his bathrobe and claimed he was sick, and he just kept going back to the bedroom several times while she was home with him. Arlene never went into the bedroom, but if she had, she would have discovered Lisa's dead body in the bathroom adjacent to the bedroom.
So, the girlfriend
Comes home
and the kid comes home, and he leaves the dead body in the house, in the bathroom.
because he can't move it at that point because someone's in the house.
Wow.
And as long as he keeps her out of that bathroom and that bedroom, then she won't see what's going on.
Yeah. Okay.
So later that night, Arlene left to visit her mother, which is probably when Gerald disposed of the body.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lisa's body was discovered in a plastic garbage bag tossed in a farm field about 4 miles outside the city. And another bag was found with her clothes in it. So she was separate from her clothes.
Oh no, baby girl.
And her mom, Lisa's mom, was quoted as saying he threw her away like garbage.
He literally did.
Threw her away, yeah.
That's so upsetting.
So Lisa was supposed to be home at 7 p.m. that night. So around 7:30, her mom began to worry.
Obviously.
By 10 p.m., the neighborhood had heard that a child was missing in their midst, and the head of the block parents made 50 calls telling everyone to turn on their lights and put signboards on their windows because they're hoping that maybe she just got lost or, you know, she got distracted and she was hanging out with friends. Like, you don't want to assume the worst immediately.
It's the 70s too. Like, I don't imagine the policies for missing kids was like super quick.
Well, the police began an all-night search, and about 5,000 people joined in on the search.
At the same time, they're also in the height of
the candy stuff.
The candy stuff. So, I mean, maybe I'm a little wrong.
So Lisa was found 2.5 days later, I think November 3rd, when farmer Gerald, somehow same name, Gerald Braun, returned home and stumbled upon 2 trash bags in the brush along McCabe Road.
So by his house?
It's around, like, I think it's because he's a farmer.
Yeah, the farmer's house is what I meant.
So word of a discovery spread as Reverend Clarence Nicolai was reported to have climbed over the barbed wire to pray over her body. So after he had heard that they found the body, he had gone to the scene of the crime and started praying over her body.
Who?
And I'm like, the reverend of the town.
Why?
And I'm like, isn't that contamination of the crime scene?
Yeah, that seems super suspicious.
But this is like 1970. That's what I was like, it just seems weird because they had talked about how he cut his hand on there too. And I'm like, it sounds super weird.
It sounds like the pastor did it. It sounds like we have another murderous pastor.
Yeah.
Maybe your pastor is really my pastor.
Maybe.
And maybe the timeline matches.
It's in 1974, so I don't really know how old
your person probably
did it. Yeah, there's some proof. But anyways, police brought in Gerald for questioning after interviewing him because they interviewed everyone in the neighborhood, obviously, because they didn't really have any leads to go on, and found that some of the details he gave of what he did that night gave off red flags. They didn't say what the red flags were or what it was, but I think that they don't tell you because they don't want people to like read it and then not do it in the future if you happen to kill someone.
Well, it's just he was probably inconsistent with the story.
Yeah.
Like that's all. Like it's probably just the information is probably just wasn't provided to anybody.
So he at that time had a pending case involving a young babysitter and sexually assaulting the young babysitter.
Okay, so he was already...
He already
had a record.
has a past of sexually assaulting younger people. And she's 25, so it's, say young. I'm going to assume that she's in her early teens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He wasn't brought in for another round of questioning until March 1974, which is 5 months later.
Yeah.
Where he started contradicting details that he had previously provided. For months, he was asked to come back in for more questioning, which he complied to. In the fall of 1974, the police asked him to take a polygraph test, which he initially refused. He provided hairs and...
So they asked him to come back, and each time he started giving like a different answer,
like a slightly different story each time, and then so they're like, "Can you do a polygraph test?" Because they're trying to get to the bottom of it.
No.
So he also provided hair and fibers from his bed sheets, which would later match the hair and fibers pulled off of Lisa's body.
Oh no.
So after reluctantly agreeing to take the polygraph test, the test proved inconclusive for the police to ask him for a second test.
Yeah.
And he refused the second test.
Well, why would you agree to the first one if you're not going to agree to the second one?
But during this time when they were like asking him and stuff, he had suggested that maybe the death was an accident.
Oh, that's sort of like my guy.
Yeah.
Maybe this guy also has partial amnesia.
Yeah.
Maybe he also has blackouts.
Autopsy of Lisa's body ruled that she died of asphyxiation.
Yeah.
And a pathologist who would later testify said that she died from shock during the assault, which is probably where he came up with the story that she died of shock. I don't know.
So a pathologist said that she died of shock,
in
but
trial,
someone else said that it was
asphyxiation.
Asphyxiation?
It just seemed weird. I didn't really know why it has such differing things. I thought it was important to know.
Maybe the pathologist was working on his side,
yeah,
and that was
I feel like if you're a person of science, you should never be trying to interpret. They do it all the time.
They do that all of the time for money. People do it all the fucking time.
Well, anyways, this led to 2 more hours of questioning, which resulted in Gerald confessing to Lisa's rape and murder.
Okay, well, at least he fucking confessed. I don't care if it took extra time then.
Gerald also provided a map of the general location of where he dumped the body, but you have to remember that at that point, they had already released information of where her body was found. So he could probably, if during the trial, like they asked him, how did you know where the body is? He's probably going to be like, well, I knew because everyone knew where the body, you know?
Oh, okay.
Because during the trial, Gerald would retract his words and deny his confession, telling the jury that he did not kill Lisa.
Of course he did.
Of course he didn't, right?
So now he's trying to get his confession thrown out, and he's trying to say that he knew, like, what?
There's holes in the stories.
What was he saying, that like the cops pressured him?
Yeah.
Okay. That's why we film our shit now.
In the 70s, though, not so much.
Yeah.
So Gerald, even if you AR found pressuring them, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean,
So.
we just don't delete those files if we do that. Or we're like, oh, the camera wasn't on.
You watch
during
Making
that
a
time.
Murderer, and you're like, they don't care.
Yeah, I mean, the camera shit only comes into play if someone like does anything about it. But
so Gerald was found guilty of 2nd-degree murder, enticing a child for immoral purposes and acts of sexual perversion.
that's gross.
And he began his 38-and-a-half-year sentence on February 4th, 1975. But the story doesn't end there.
Oh shit! Does he get out?
Yeah. So in
Because it always gets
1992,
worse.
he was paroled for good behavior after only serving 17 years and 8 months. During this time, he violated his parole and was found in possession of hardcore pornographic material and a letter he wrote for Lisa. I don't know if you want me to read this letter, but I found
Do you
it.
want to read the letter?
I did write it down in case you wanted to hear it. But it said,
Yes.
Dear Lisa, I doubt that I could ever fully realize the terror you experienced at my hands.
Nope.
For that night of the children to have started out so joyous for you, only to end so tragically, will haunt me forever.
Oh, get out of here.
I can see you standing in a doorway with that felt hat, beaming hat, having recognized me.
You creep.
Then I see the light in your eyes turn to fear as I close the door behind you. The rest of my life, I will have to live with what I did to you. On that night, I became a monster. I do swear to you on forfeiture of my life, I'll never harm another child.
Yeah.
And I wrote right here, fuck you. But he didn't do it because that's what he tried to plead for, and right?
Yeah, but I mean, once that didn't really work, then
He was just like, I did it, whatever.
Yeah, okay,
I already
no, I
got
really-
punished for it. Yeah.
I'm really sorry for what I did.
So 6 years later, in 1998, he was paroled again after a jury determined that they didn't consider him to be sexually violent.
What? Why?
This
After how many years? Sorry.
This was he served 17 years in prison. Then he was paroled, and then he was found with pornographic material in the letter to Lisa, so he went back to jail. But then he was paroled again, and because the jury determined that, yeah.
Yeah, but
wasn't
how
sexually
long
violent.
was he back in jail for the second time?
I think it was 2 years.
Oh,
It wasn't a long time.
So,
He got paroled again.
wow, that's
This-
such bullshit.
This was despite the fact that there was a new sexual predatory law that was created after this incident, one many call Turner's Law, which is his last name.
Wow, no.
This law allows for violent sexual offenders to be committed to a secured treatment center when they come up for parole if they are determined to pose a threat to society.
Okay, so they basically were like, all right, we're gonna make a
law.
facility,
Yeah.
facility for just sexual offenders,
Yeah,
which
like a
that's where
treatment
they
center.
should, yeah, that's what they should do, and that's where they should be.
But then they decided he wasn't sexually violent.
Oh, well, they're wrong.
And during the hearing for this, a 15-year-old babysitter, a former girlfriend, and 2 former wives testified that when they
of
declined
Gerald?
sex,
Of him?
of him,
Oh.
all of them testified that when they declined sex, Gerald would beat and rape them, including the 15-year-old babysitter.
What?
Yep.
And
And no, he
and
wasn't found.
He was 25 and he had how many wives?
Yeah, well, I mean, at this point, I guess like he went to jail when he was 25.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
But I guess he could be married when he's in jail because people are
That's
really weird.
gross.
Yeah. But I'm going to assume it's
God.
before jail because, yeah.
So these women come and say that when they turned him down for sex, he beats and rapes them, and
Yeah.
they're just like, "Oh no, we don't find you sexually
He's not
aggressive.
a violent
You're not-
sexual offender.
You're not Yes, he is. What is with this panel? Jesus fucking Christ.
So on July 1998, when he was out, Gerald would wave a knife and shout at a caseworker at the Madison group home he was cooking at. And when they went to the judge for it, he refused to revoke his parole. In 1999, he would later settle out of court with the Waste Management of Madison after they refused to hire him.
Yeah.
Because in Wisconsin is one of the 10 states that bars employers from discriminating against convicted criminals unless a crime is substantially related to the job applied. But in a legal defense,
I would argue that him dumping that girl, like she was a piece of trash, is very similar to him working in waste management.
and like I guess like a better like it's still emotional, but in
That
the
was
legal
a-
defense for the waste management company, students and scout troops regularly toured the plant.
Yeah.
And he had been known to kill someone much younger.
Yeah. He's
And he
an
got paid
oppor-
for it because after, like, he sued
won?
them. Well, they settled out of court because Waste
Yeah.
Management was like, it's not worth to go through the whole process. It'll cost us so much money.
Yeah. How much did he fucking get?
Well, it's the undisclosed amount.
That's disgusting.
yeah.
What a piece of shit.
Gerald was sent back to prison in 2003 when he was found to have violated his parole by possessing and viewing hardcore pornography in the halfway house he was living in.
He just couldn't give up that porn,
No.
man.
So he would serve the remaining 15 years that was tacked onto his original thing, conviction.
Now did they send him to that fucking facility?
So Gerald was set to be released in February 1st, 2018.
Oh God.
On April 2018, a judge in Fond du Lac agreed to move the case to Dane County, where he last resided. He's still alive.
Oh, I
And
was
he's still
hoping
in
that he would
custody
die.
because they're still trying to fight this out because they don't want him to be released. The state is hoping to keep him behind bars under Turner's law, which I feel, if the law is basically known by your last name
Yeah.
and you as a person,
I would really hope that the law that is named after him would be able to keep him behind bars.
you would hope so.
It hasn't yet, but let's see if we can squeal it in there, Wisconsin.
Well, that was the last thing I
Squeal
found.
it in there, Wisconsin. What the fuck, Stephanie?
That's good. It's our tagline. Squeal it in there.
Squeal it in there.
It's the last thing I was able to find on the case. So,
Wow.
and this piece of shit is the reason why so many towns have Halloween curfews. And why
There's
children-
Halloween curfew?
There's Halloween curfews
Okay.
in a lot of towns.
Because in Ohio, I have a friend that lives in Ohio, and they have, like, people start going trick-or-treating on the 27th, and they have, like, in this
What?
area, you do the 27th, and then this area does the
I didn't
28th,
know
and on this area
that.
does the 29th,
That's actually
and on
kind
this
of
area.
great.
And I was just like, why? That doesn't make any
It's the
sense to
curfews, 'cause
me.
you can't trick or treat at nighttime in a lot of places anymore.
That's
that's why London
so-
died. I don't know if they have a curfew here, but it definitely dies. Like after 7:30, there's no kids out there anymore.
Yeah, kids definitely start popping out around 4
5,
o'clock.
yeah,
4
4
or
or
4
5.
o'clock. And that's not how it was when I was growing
No,
up.
I definitely went out like 7.
Yeah, it was like 7, 8 o'clock when you first started going out,
Yeah,
and then
and
you
you
were
came back
like
home at
wandering
11.
home. Yeah, wandering
Yeah.
home at like 11, 12 o'clock.
Not anymore. Even though this happened way before we were children, so I'm not
Yeah.
sure. But
Like,
anyways,
and yeah, so happy Halloween, safe trick or treating. Hope you guys enjoy.
I hope you trick or treat, even though you're
You're an
well
adult.
past your age, like I did. Okay.
Not me.
I'm just saying, you're trick or treating when you're 26 years old and married. It's totally okay.
No,
Yeah, it is.
it's not.
totally
You
okay.
should be full on ashamed of yourself.
No, you should just be super happy about the free candy you're getting.